Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back once again for a little bit more of Rise of Flight here with Bismarck. I've been continuing to play a lot of this game during the last couple of weeks, and it's really good. I'd hesitate to call it the best simulator at the moment because yeah, sure, it's not as in-depth as some of the other simulators that are out there at the moment, but as a full-rounded experience, especially in the single player, there is probably not much better than Rise of Flight at the moment. Maybe the old IL-2s also have a career mode that kind of rivals the one we have in this game, but as a single player game, this simulator beats all others. And you do still have a multiplayer community that plays this game as well, so if you're into that, that might also be interesting. That all being said, as I've said in previous videos, you know, if you have a joystick and you have not yet tried this game, give it a go. There's a free trial available for this title and it really is worth a shot. That being said, with the Steam sale up and running at this point, I'm sure that during the next couple of days you'll also be able to snatch up a couple of the packs for this game for quite a cheap price if you are in fact interested in doing so. Because you don't really have to, since you already get free aircraft free with the trial. Now, alongside with trying out various aircrafts that are available in the game, I've also started reading on some of the aces that flew in for the First World War, and I've been expanding it from the German aces over to the British, French aces, and then also minor nations, let's say. And I found quite an interesting story about a Belgian ace, in fact, that I want to share with you guys. Now, this chap is called Willy. I think that's the way you pronounce Kurpens, but I might be wrong. And he is the leading World War I ace from the Belgians. Now, he actually has 37 recorded kills, which is quite high. And I thought, wow, I mean, I've never heard of this guy. How is this possible? Now, the reason why I haven't heard about this guy is probably because, well, first of all, he's from Belgium, it's a small country, and there's not really room for a lot of storytelling there compared to, let's say, Van Richthofen. So history has maybe been a little bit unkind there. But as well as that, by World War I standards, this guy was really good in his score. By World War II standards, he would only have 2 kills. And this is quite interesting because 35 of his 37 kills are in fact balloons. Now you might laugh at this point and say, what, they counted balloons for kills? And yes, in fact they did, and it wasn't frowned upon. In World War I, balloon kills were considered to be actually quite good, and they counted as a valid kill, and they counted towards your ace score. Now I've been reading a little bit on attacks on balloons, and it's not just that you fire a couple of machine gun rounds into a balloon. It's actually quite hazardous. These balloons were often used for spotting and recon purposes, and they were heavily defended. They sometimes had enemy aviation surrounding them, making sure that they are unmolested, and they also had a horde of flag guns surrounding them, and sometimes even the balloon itself had a machine gun mounted in the carriage. Overall, balloon attacks were actually considered so hazardous that yes, in fact, scoring a kill against them was considered completely legitimate, and you were able to put it on your official score. And I think it goes without saying that if World War I aces counted balloon kills to be a legitimate strike on your score, then the dangers involved in doing so were comparable to those of an aerial engagement plane against plane. So yes, Willy Kurpens, he scored 35 balloon kills, which probably makes him somewhat of a party pooper for the Germans. There comes Willy, he's gonna be a party pooper again, yeah, Hans. Anyway, if you've watched Fula, maybe you understand that joke. Anyway, I'm also going to link a little bit of an interview with Willy Kurpens in the description box below. Have a look there. Now, the story of Willy Kurpens is actually quite interesting. He, alongside with many other Belgian pilots, actually covered the expenses of training himself. There was not a big budget for aviation training, apparently, for the Belgian pilots, and whoever wanted to be a pilot kind of had to fund the training himself. Now, the Hanriot HD.1, the plane that I'm flying here, was also flown by Kurpens, and the Belgians actually quite liked this plane. That is to say, after they actually got used to it. Earlier on, they were flying Newports, and they were quite happy with those Newports. And when the Hanriots came in, as in fact an Italian plane, Belgium had bought 125 of them during the summer of 1917. The Hanriot wasn't very well regarded. One of the problems was that its armament was simply lacking. It only had 1 machine gun, and by that time 2 machine guns were deemed to be optimal. And as well as that, the installation of a second machine gun proved to diminish the performance of this aircraft quite significantly. As well as that, it was less maneuverable and agile as the Newport, and this wasn't really to the liking of the Belgian pilots. However, after a couple of teething problems, they actually fell in love with this aircraft. It was a little bit faster than what they have previously flown, it had a higher ceiling, and all around they actually quite enjoyed the Hanriot. So much so that when the British offered to substitute the Hanriots with new modern Camels, the Belgians actually refused. And these aircraft stayed in service with the Belgian Air Service until 1926. That's quite a respectable lifespan for such a plane. What is remarkable about this aircraft as well, that 2 of them were fitted with an experimental Vickers gun, which was produced on a license in France. This was an 11mm Vickers gun, which also served to help a little bit with the development of the M2 Browning. The Americans were actually quite impressed with the gun and also the armor-piercing incendiary rounds that it had, and they drew some lessons from it. Now, 2 of the Hanriots that the Belgians had were fitted with this gun, and Coppens flew one of them, and he had nothing but positive words on this weapon. Even if the Hanriot was mounted with a second 7.7 machine gun, the 11mm simply proved more devastating to the 2 7.7s combined. Now, during his career, Coppens actually had quite a few brushes with death. One time, and this is a story that has some good nurturing ground for kind of an urban legend, so I'm being a little bit careful here with what really happened. But it's reported that he shot at a balloon, and somehow the balloon cable snapped and it started rising. And Coppens was so surprised that he had to pull up his aircraft, and he kind of landed on the balloon. He cut his engine and then kind of glided off. Now, how much that is actually true and how much there is a little bit of fantasy involved in that, since we're nearly 100 years from the actual event, I do not know, but it kind of makes for a funny image there. Now, I'm going to be linking a video down below with a short interview with Coppens where he explains a little bit of what happened during the war. He, in fact, did not survive the war unscarred. His wartime service was, in fact, cut short on his last balloon attack, where he scored his 37th kill. An incendiary round fired from the ground actually hit his leg, and he later had to be amputated. And here is what I just find remarkable about these pilots and soldiers sometimes. The way he talks about it, and he actually makes a joke saying that it's lucky that he wasn't an alcoholic, otherwise the incendiary round would have put him aflame. And that's the only thing he really says about losing a leg. So that's, when I hear those kind of things, I just shake my head and I think, how is it possible that somebody can take an injury like that and still smile? It's just incredible sometimes these. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Check out Willy Coppens' interview down below. I hope you also enjoyed the little engagement against the Fokker triplane that I had here. At one point he actually nearly turned it around. I got a little bit scared there. If you notice the exact moment where that happened, put it down in the comment section below as well. And now, as always, I wish all you aces a great day, good hunting, and see you in the sky.